This episode is brought to you by The Build, a new podcast from the guys behind Sincera, Mike O'Sullivan and Ian Myers. They built their company by figuring out clever solutions to a few important ad tech problems in their industry. And that's exactly what this show is about. Mike and Ian interview some of the smartest tech minds in the biz to hear about how they identified opportunities, solved their hardest challenges, and grew their businesses in the process. Listen to The Build with Mike O'Sullivan wherever you get your podcasts.
It was such a janky MVP. Truth was, I was actually putting it together nights and weekends, trying to figure out whether there was a there, because it's not like this vision of the personal assistant for everyone, a way to scale human help is a new idea. A lot of people have tried this. And to be totally honest, they have never figured out the way to leverage technology to give enough vertical integration to get the human servicing to a place of high efficiency and high efficacy and consistency that consumers expect of this. I knew that there was a bit of a trail of tears in this category. My name is Meghan Joyce, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Duckbill.
This is Code Story, a podcast bringing you interviews with tech visionaries.
Spent 6 months moonlighting.
There's nothing on the back end.
Who share what it takes to change an industry.
I don't exactly know what to do
took
next.
many goes to get right.
Who built the teams that have their back.
Our company is its people.
The teams help each other achieve
Most
more.
proud of our team.
Keeping scalability top of mind.
All that infrastructure was a
Yes, we've been fighting it as we grow.
Total waste of time. The stories you don't read in the headlines.
It's not an easy thing to achieve, mind
Took it
you.
off the shelf and dusted it off and tried it again.
To ride the ups and downs of the startup life.
You need to really want it.
It's not just about technology.
All this and more on Code Story.
I'm your host, Noah Laupart, and today how Meghan Joyce is helping you be the most productive you can be, using AI combined with actually getting stuff done. Today's episode is brought to you by .tech Domains, and this one hits close to home. Back in 2016, I was building my startup and went hunting for that perfect .com and found next to nothing. So I did what every founder does, settled. Here's what I wish someone had told me. You're building a tech startup, just get a .tech domain. It instantly tells investors and customers what you're about. Don't overthink it. Secure your .tech domain today from any registrar of your choice. This episode is sponsored by Unblocked. Unblocked is the context layer your agents are missing. It synthesizes your PRs, docs, Slack, and tickets into organizational context that agents actually understand. So they make better plans, write higher quality code, use fewer tokens, and require fewer correction loops. If you're running Claude Code, Cursor, or any agentic workflow, Unblocked is worth a look. Learn more at getunblocked.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by Mesmo. If your team is collecting large volumes of logs, metrics, and traces, but still struggling to get timely answers, Mesmo can help. Mesmo is an active telemetry platform that processes and enriches observability data in real time before it's stored or analyzed. That means lower data volume, lower cost, and faster root cause analysis across your existing observability tools. To see how it works, get a demo at mesmo.com/codestory. That's MEZMO.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by BrainGrid. If you are building with AI coding tools, but your features keep breaking, you need to check out BrainGrid. It is the product management agent for AI builders. BrainGrid turns messy ideas into clear specs, tasks, and prompts that coding agents like Cursor and Claude can actually build the right way. Ship real software, not fragile prototypes. Start free at braingrid.ai. Meghan Joyce comes from a long line of people living life to the fullest. She takes a lot of influence from her grandmother, who was an entrepreneur making and selling dresses in the early 1900s, influencing her to take a hold of every moment in life and capitalize on the time you have. She's led groups at Uber and Oscar prior to starting her current venture, but outside of tech, she is the mother of 3 children. Her favorite hobby is to spend time with the people she loves, meeting them where they are. But when she has spare time to herself, she enjoys being in nature, hiking, or walking on a beach, and staying active. Meghan was sitting on a bed in Amsterdam and experienced a problem with parental technology, i.e. a breast pump, that was keeping her from running things at Uber. While sitting on hold with the company, trying to get another one available, she started to wish she had a solution that would help her with this while she attended her meetings at Uber. This is the creation story of Duckbill.
Duckbill is the execution infrastructure for the physical world, and that's a mouthful. The way that most people think of us, frankly, is their place to dump the mess of life, the personal assistant that actually gets stuff done in the real world for them. What makes Duckbill different and what allows us to be that real execution infrastructure for the physical world, we sit between AI agents and human operators to complete real-world physical tasks that AI alone can't do. Whether it's making complex phone calls or running errands or basic maintenance, our job is understanding the ever-evolving execution frontier where AI hits the wall, and to leverage AI as much as possible to get those things done, because that's what's going to give you the fastest, cheapest, easiest path into that task. But ultimately, when something does need to be handed to a human, we do it in a way that is clear and discreet and set up for success, just like an Uber ride or a DoorDash or Instacart delivery, so that you can rest assured it gets done well on your behalf. This all arose out of a personal need. I was an executive at Uber and then at Oscar, and building this business I love, growing a family, and realizing that I was spending all this spare time and energy really trying to manage that life admin. I remember the moment that I became convinced I would start this company one day. I was actually sitting on the edge of a bed in a hotel in Amsterdam. I was there for an Uber global leadership meeting. I had just had my first kiddo, I think about 6 weeks prior, and I felt it was really important to be at that meeting. So I flew over the Atlantic and I landed on the ground and plugged my breast pump, into a European socket and promptly blew the fuse. And so I did this day of meetings and was trying to make do as creatively as I could, and got home from these meetings and was on the phone with the breast pump company at 1 a.m. Amsterdam time, trying to figure out, was there a way to troubleshoot? Could they express ship me a new one in Amsterdam? And I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm running a multi-billion-dollar P&O. I have a little kid at home. Like, this is the last thing I want to be thinking about. And yet here I am. And I just wished there was something, some service, some person that I could have offloaded this to in the moment, where I was like, here I am, I have this emergency. I need you to figure out how to get me a backup breast pump immediately, because I need to be in these meetings. I need to be building this business. I need to be flying back to see my kiddo in a few days. Anything other than waiting on hold with customer support and trying to troubleshoot this 8 hours later. So that was the very visceral need that we set out to achieve. And it's really in that combination of AI plus humans that we've been able to achieve it.
I want to dive into the MVP, so that first version of Duckbill that you created. How long did it take to build, and what sort of tools were you using to bring it to life?
It was such a janky MVP. Truth was, I was actually putting it together nights and weekends, trying to figure out whether there was a there, because it's not like this vision of the personal assistant for everyone, a way to scale human help is a new idea. A lot of people have tried this. And to be totally honest, they have never figured out the way to leverage technology to give enough vertical integration to get the human servicing to a place of high efficiency and high efficacy and consistency that consumers expect of this. I knew that there was a bit of a trail of tears in this category, and I didn't want to take that leap without doing a bit of diligence. And so I took a page out of Travis Kalanick's playbook, the founder of Uber. So what I did was hire a personal assistant and made her available to a handful of friends at cost. I didn't want false flag of, do people use this if it's free? I wanted to charge them per real hourly rate. There was a very lightweight web app. But what we found from that Scotch tape and bubblegum version of the product was that people loved this product. In fact, they loved it so much that the group of users very quickly expanded beyond that tight circle of friends because people are like, my college roommate could really use this. My brother would like it. I have a colleague who's been talking about this and could really use someone. And so the word of mouth just took off on wildfire. And then the second thing we found that when we were dealing with these really idiosyncratic things in our own personal lives, truth be told, each one of us had 70 or 80 different types of things that we dealt with over the course of the year. And so no wonder any one human feels overwhelmed. There are 70 or 80 different types of things that the average adult does on their to-do list at any one given time. And that's a lot for a human, but it's actually not a lot for an AI system to manage 70 or 80 different types of tasks. And by the way, the types of verbs that are distilled down from those. And so what we did over time was build increasing data collection and technology around all those human actions. And at the point at which that we had done about 10 million of them, which was just about a year ago, we could train our models to be good enough that we got the product to a point where it was consistently delightful, totally reliable, and scalable.
This episode is brought to you by The Build, a new podcast from the guys behind Sincera, Mike O'Sullivan and Ian Myers. They built their company by figuring out clever solutions to a few important ad tech problems in the industry, and that's exactly what this show is about. Mike and Ian interview some of the smartest tech minds at Magnite, Chalice, DoubleClick, and LiveRamp to hear about how they identified opportunities, solved their hardest challenges, and grew their businesses in the process. This show is for you if you've had some of these breakthrough moments yourself, or if you're seeking inspiration for the next one. Listen to The Build with Mike O'Sullivan wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by .tech Domains, and this one hits close to home. Back in 2016, when I was building my own tech startup, I went on the hunt for that elusive .com. Looked high, looked low, and guess what I found? Nothing. What I did find cost me an arm and a leg. So I did what every founder does under pressure. Threw in extra letters, settled for the less than optimal name. And here's what I wish someone had said to me back then. Noah, you're building a tech startup. Just get a .tech domain. Tech startup, .tech domain. It could not be more obvious. It tells investors, customers, and anyone who looks at your website, really, that tech is at the core of your build. And I've kicked myself plenty since, especially when I see the clean and sharp names tech companies have landed on .tech. Nothing.tech, 1x.tech, Aurora.tech, CES.tech, Ultra.tech, Alice.tech, Neon.tech, Blaze.tech, Pi.tech. You get the idea. So take it from someone who learned it the hard way. If you're building a tech startup, don't overthink it. Secure your .tech domain today from any registrar of your choice. This episode is sponsored by BrainGrid. Building with AI coding tools is exciting until the moment things start breaking. You ask for a small change and suddenly 3 other features stop working. AI gets confused, misses edge cases, and loses track of your intent. The problem is not code generation. The problem is planning. That is why BrainGrid exists. BrainGrid acts as your product management agent. It writes clear specification, maps UX flows, asks the clarifying questions you forgot to ask, and breaks big ideas into engineering-grade tasks that AI coding tools can build reliably. It guides Cursor, Claude Code, Replit, Windsurf, and others so they deliver features that work and keep working. Founders use BrainGrid to build real AI-native SaaS products without a technical background. If you want reliable features instead of fragile prototypes, try BrainGrid for free at braingrid.ai. That's braingrid.ai. So you've got that MVP, you've got it to the point you want it. How did you progress it and mature it from that point? And again, you touched on this at a high level, but walk me through that. And I think to wrap it in a box a little bit, what I'm looking for is, how did you build your roadmap? How did you go about deciding that, okay, this is the next most important thing to build or to address with Duckbill?
Because we were participating in this wildly fast-moving, well-funded AI economy, we felt that it would be unwise to get too big or too commercial without having a product that we know works. The best way to grow our business was to have a product that people were in love with. Because when people are in love with your product, they do use it more and more every time. And that's the best way to get a product off the ground, especially when you're building a category, especially when you're doing something new. Because most people are not the tinkerers or early adopters who want to try untested things for fun. They want something that is recommended by someone they trust. We actually had a wait list up. We were in stealth for a long time and had a wait list up. And we allowed people to refer others. We tinkered with what it would take to serve them well. So we weren't caught totally flat-footed by the time we got to our growth phase, but it was a very controlled growth until we did two things. Number one, until we had nailed reliability. That was our North Star at Uber. It was our North Star at Oscar. And if someone is going to use this for help in their personal life, it has to execute reliably. And to be honest, I can't tell you how many people have come back to me now in 2025, 2026, is that I tried your product a few years ago and I loved the vision, but it wasn't totally reliable yet. And I returned recently and holy cow, it is a different ballgame. And that's why we waited to really light the full fire, because we knew it wasn't ready for prime time. Number two, we needed to make sure that we weren't losing money with every incremental tap that you have to score, which really means gross margin, break even, or profitability, which is challenging when it comes to a human-in-the-loop situation. And I firmly believe that services or human-in-the-loop or tech-enabled services can be done widely well. This is the whole basis of Sequoia's new investment thesis, but you have to know what you're getting yourself into and have the discipline to not treat it like that, because it doesn't have 80% margins out of the gate. And so our roadmap followed those two things. The number one priority was about building reliability. And there were a number of different facets to that, but it was all about building the technology that could not only automate as much as possible and leverage the humans for what humans are really uniquely good at, but also setting the humans up for success such that by the time the work got to them, it was packaged in a way that they didn't need a lot of training or expertise to do well. They just needed to be a smart, capable human with good judgment in the real world. And like the average Uber driver partner or DoorDash or Instacart delivery person. And so it took a while to get there. Huge amount of tooling and support and data and model training and retraining to get there. And then with that came gross margin and profitability and sustainability. And the really nice thing about this model is that it actually gets more profitable as it gets more delightful, because it means less rework, it means it's faster turnaround time, and those things are a rising tide that has lifted all boats. So it's been a real journey, but those two things were our only priorities for a long time. And it was only when we got to 99% reliability and real meaningful gross margin that we even started to look at growth. And that's really been a relatively new thing.
Okay, let's flip to team then. So I hear you saying we a lot. How did you build that team, and what'd you look for in those people to indicate that they are the winning horses to join you?
I, number one, recruited a lot of people that I had worked with in the past that I trusted deeply. There are folks on my team from Oscar and Uber, and those people hired folks that they had worked with in the past who were stars in other organizations that they had worked in. And that really saved us a lot of onboarding, getting to know you time. We already knew each other's idiosyncrasies and ways of working and what good looked like, and we had a common lexicon from the experiences that we had shared in the past. It allowed us to just get to building as quickly as possible. And it was selfishly so much fun as someone who has worked with thousands of people to really get the gang back together and say, we're some of the best people I've worked with in the past. Like, let's see if we can get it on board and have fun while we're building. We all work way too hard not to love the people we're building alongside. So that was my criteria number one. Someone I really trusted, who I knew to be a star from a past environment. And number two There was a lot of exploration in the early days of building an AI around what was the right profile of person for this product. And we talked to everyone under the sun, AI researchers, folks who had been working in this field forever, data scientists, machine learning experts. And we found that a couple things were wildly predictive of success at Duckbill. Number one, pure hunger and passion for the mission. Nothing can replace that. And when you have it, you're going to be thinking about it in your spare time. You're going to be reading up on this subject over the weekends. You're really going to care about getting this right. Number two was an innate interest in AI. The space was moving so fast that just because you had gotten a PhD in AI so many years ago didn't mean you were up to date on the latest and greatest. And in order to stay current, you really got to love it. And having people who are drawn to the space and reading up on the white papers and assessing the field and the landscape because they found it fascinating was a better predictor for us than deep experience and knowledge in the space. The third one was you had been in an environment that combined technology and humans before. It is a fundamentally different thing to build pure SaaS or pure software or social network or things like that versus a system like Uber or DoorDash or Instacart or Amazon or Affirm or Plated that really bring together technology and real-world logistics and real-world humans and humanity and all the wonderful and challenging things that come with that. Because there are just some quirks and aspects of that space that create incredible opportunity if you have the pattern recognition for it. Those are the companies that a lot of our early people have drawn from, and combined with hiring people we've worked with in the past who have a passion for what we're building and really love staying abreast of the latest technology and AI has gotten us the winning team.
This episode is sponsored by Unblocked. Your coding agents have access to your code base. Maybe you even connected other tools via MCPs. But access doesn't mean context. Agents can't reason across MCPs. They don't know your architectural decisions, your team's patterns, or why the API was shaped the way it is. So agents look in the wrong place and deliver bad outputs. Then you spend time correcting. More loops, more tokens. Unblocked is the context layer your agents are missing. It synthesizes your PRs, docs, Slack, and tickets into organizational context that agents actually understand. So they make better plans, write higher quality code, use fewer tokens, and require fewer correction loops. If you're running Claude Code, Cursor, or any agentic workflow, Unblocked is worth a look. Learn more at getunblocked.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by Mesmo. If you're responsible for reliability, performance, or platform architecture, you already know the problem. Telemetry volume is growing faster than teams can manage it. Mesmo addresses this by moving observability upstream. Instead of storing everything and asking questions later, Mesmo processes telemetry in motion, filtering, transforming, and enriching logs, metrics, and traces before they reach your observability backend. The result is cleaner data, reduced ingestion costs, and faster root cause analysis using the tools you already rely on. Mesmo integrates with platforms like Datadog, Dynatrace, and open source stacks, giving teams more control without adding operational overhead. This is especially useful for platform engineers and SREs supporting complex distributed systems where context and speed matter. To see how active telemetry works in practice, get a demo at mesmo.com/codestory. That's MEZMO.com/codestory. You mentioned scalability earlier, so I want to double back on that. How did you approach scalability in the beginning? And how do you think about that? And then, have there been interesting areas where you've had to fight scale as you've grown?
Absolutely. So much of the first few years were building systems, scaling them, and getting to a point where, this is where the next thing has broken, right? So much of business, so much of operations is chasing bottleneck to bottleneck. If you're doing your job well, you're constantly running into gating items to the next phase of growth. And I think the best operators, especially in a high growth environment, are the ones who are seeing around corners before the volume or before the bottlenecks arise so that they can get proactive about tackling them. But in our first few years, it was really that around finding either proactively or reactively the bottleneck that were getting in the way of scalability and letting a group of folks off the wait list and then saying, okay, here we found the next one. And I think a lot of the bottlenecks that we found came down to the challenge of what we were building and what makes this space so difficult, frankly. As much as we all have 70 or 80 things on our to-do list, no two tasks look exactly the same. There are no two duplicates within our however many tens of millions of real-world interactions have looked exactly the same. Even if it's a recurring task that maybe you need your haircut booked every month. It's a new day, it's a new schedule. Goodness knows something might be going on in town, the barber might be on vacation, you might have had a change in your schedule, maybe the barber's retiring. There are always idiosyncratic things about what you need and what that vendor is able to provide that cause no two workflows to look exactly the same. And this is why services have not been vertically integrated or scaled outside of a few select examples, because it's really hard to anticipate and build systems and accommodate all those idiosyncrasies. And that has now changed thanks to AI, but it doesn't mean that take AI off the shelf and it can just accommodate them out of the gate. You need to build a set of models that accommodate multi-turns. And you need to aggregate enough data about the kinds of failure cases that do create bottlenecks, whether it's because the human worker or the vendor has certain types of failure modes. They're on vacation, they're busy, they change their prices, or because the customer has idiosyncratic needs. They want to switch their hairdresser. This time they want to get coloring in addition to a cut. You're booking a restaurant reservation, but this time there's someone in your party who has a nut allergy, or you need to expand the size of your party all of a sudden because you have folks in town. All of those things need to be distilled down into a set of predictive, manageable, atomic, bite-sized pieces that can then be dealt with by AI with humans reliably. And every single one of them was a bottleneck. Until we did reach that kind of 10 million interaction rate where we had enough data to get predictive, and no single type of bottleneck was capping our growth at any given moment in time.
Okay, so as you step out on the balcony and you look across all that you've built thus far with Duckbill, what are you most proud of?
I think it's the opportunity that we have now created, having followed a mission and a dedication to serving real people and being creative and flexible in how we do that. Meaning, there were a few things that were really important to us. We really wanted to give genuine leverage to everyday people on the hardest last mile task that really drags them down. Nobody had figured this out yet, and that's what we wanted to solve. But we were pretty agnostic about how much AI and how much humans in the loop and how much robots and what the combinations they're in were all about, because we knew that if we did this well, we would be making the world better for those people. And if you believe that humans are required in the loop for at least some of the foreseeable future, and that's indeed what we found, then you'd be creating noble work opportunities for those people as well. Everything else was up for debate. Everything else was up for experimentation. And what my team did was take those perhaps contrarian bets at a moment in time when a lot of people are thinking about AI as job replacement, or AI as a standard set of things that does not actually touch the last mile and hit the wall at the point of the last mile, and bet on those things. And frankly, a lot of people told us it wasn't possible, or that we were foolish to try to do it, or that it was going to require a ton of blood, sweat, and tears. And they were right about that. But we stuck with it, and we did it smartly, and we were incredibly tenacious And now, at this point, not only have we proven this out on well over 10 million real-world action, but now we're starting to function as the infrastructure layer, such that when those AI assistants and autonomous agents hit a wall, engineers and customers and enterprises are starting to plug Duckbill in to be their last mile execution layer. Or some of those large sources of aggregated labor are saying, I want to make sure I have a clear runway for all of my people to keep doing work in the AI future. As robots and autonomous delivery agents and things like that start to cut into their supply hours. And wow, Duckbill is actually creating work that they can sop up as a result of this infrastructure layer. And so I think, as contrarian as it has felt at various moments in the last several years, this idea of physical AI or AI extending into the physical world is now a place that people are turning and saying, of course this will happen. And I think because we made a few gutsy bets and stuck with it through thick and thin, we are able to meet this moment, and we're the only ones.
Okay, Meghan, let's flip the script a little bit. Tell me about a mistake you made and how you and your team responded to it.
There were a handful of bets that were just not built at the pace that this moment in time requires. Maybe we set out with a 6-week-long roadmap, even a 3-week-long roadmap. And midway through that build, we would get new information, or we would see a new capability hit the market that would teach us something about how we should be building and how we should be approaching the problem. And then we were at a moment in time where we were midstream on a build. Nobody wants to tell a team, you've been building this thing for however many weeks, maybe months in some cases, and we're going to throw it out and do something differently. It also meant that by the time you were done building it, it was pretty expensive because it had taken several people, however many weeks, if not months, to get out into the wild. And so it heightened the cost of ditching those things if they didn't work. And I think the tooling has gotten better and enabled us to ship so much faster. But there are also some kind of mentality and process and culture changes that needed to happen to say, we're not even going to deal with sprints. We are truly going to be shipping every day. We are going to build a team of agents that do our coding for us so that we can think the big thoughts and put things into the wild and try things out that are scrappy and quick and allow us to learn. And then if it works, build on it, double down, do the full fidelity version of that MVP feature, but do it with the knowledge that we got it out into the real world and it worked or didn't. And that was a huge unlock for us where, even if we were building faster than some of us had ever built in the past, it wasn't fast enough for this moment in time. And I think one of the biggest unlocks, there was a big build that I just felt in my gut we really needed to do. And I'll be totally candid with you, I wasn't 100% sold on it, but I knew it would take us 36 hours. One of the most exciting side effects that I was looking forward to of this build was that it was going to be a tricky one. And if we did it, it would show us we can build hard things fast. And so I pushed the team to do it. They did it. They did it better than I ever could have expected or dreamed. It got near immediate uptake. And it really proved to us just how fast and aggressively we can go. And I have seen a marked increase in pace from the team since then. It's amazing what proving to yourself that you can do the hard things can do for your speed and confidence and level of aggression. How much we all need that right now in this moment in time.
Okay, Meghan, let's move forward then. What does the future look like for Duckbill? Where the industry is going, where Duckbill is headed for your product and for your team?
So I've talked to you about where we started, which was bringing this product to consumers. It was really important to me that we built the product in such a way that consumers loved it and were willing to pay for it. As a consumer person at my core, that to me is the surest sign of product market fit and of a product that people really love. Uber famously resisted offering a B2B product for a long time because they knew it would be a distraction the minute that we started selling to corporate travel departments or HR teams. We really wanted to build something the consumer loved, and Duckbill took the same approach. And now that we have it, that next phase really is making it easy for all of those builders and engineers and founders who are either running or building their own companies to plug Duckbill in as that last mile execution layer, to plug us in as the infrastructure layer for physical execution. And I think of it not dissimilar from Stripe. Stripe had incredible timing in the early days of the e-commerce boom, expecting that both supply and demand would proliferate in e-commerce, but that building the payments infrastructure would not be worth folks' time. And we think about it the same way. The foundation models we see as increasingly commoditizing, labor we see as only growing in this environment, the demand for good work. And we believe that the demand and supply for services delivered through AI agents or autonomous assistants, is only going to boom. We're seeing it already. And so what we've built is that infrastructure layer that any builder can take off the shelf to facilitate the distilling of that last mile services down into something that is reliable and sustainable. Whether they're bringing their own agent, maybe they're bringing their own workers, but Duckbill is the infrastructure layer that connects them and facilitates it all. Then I think about the third growth horizon really as being all about our data. And so given that we've done well over 10 million real world actions to date, we have the world's largest database of real world data, what it takes to hand the baton into the offline world to complete physical execution. And so we have a full heat map across the country of gaps in supply and demand, where there's enormous amounts of desire from consumers and willingness to pay for services, but the supply is not meeting the moment. Think about how hard it is to find plumbers or landscapers in certain markets. Not every plumbing or landscaping job should be done by AI plus human in the loop, but a lot of it can be in ways that are higher reliability, higher quality, more consistent, and create more lucrative labor for the person doing the work. And so we continue to build this database. We also are pushing further into the last mile and directing our technology and human in the loop functionality towards more and more services. Right now, we do the complex phone calls and the offline transactions and basic errands and maintenance. But you could see that going into more complex maintenance, more skilled artisanal services over time. And that is where I think the opportunity for this is truly endless. Services are a multi-trillion-dollar industry, and I think this is how we start to bring them into the 21st century in an AI economy.
Awesome. The future is bright. Let's switch to you, Meghan. Who influences the way that you work? Name a person or many persons or something you look up to and why.
I remember my mom telling me when I was a leader in a school play in 7th grade that the best leaders bring out the best in the people around them, and that really that's what leadership is all about. And it fundamentally changed how I thought about leadership. I think prior to that, as a kid, I thought about leaders as people who were at the center of things, and it was all about them. And this really challenged me to think about my role here is to help bring out the best in everybody around me and to ensure that your people are setting their own high bar, even when you're not looking. And I think if you can combine those two things of high standards and high support, that's where excellence becomes really sustained, where you have people who believe they can do the impossible and then they go do it over and over again. That's what I've had, Uber and Oscar, and it's what we're doing at Duckbill. And there's no greater place to be as a teammate, but also as just a human. I think to have that confidence building of knowing you can build something really hard and change people's lives as a result.
Okay, last question, Meghan. And it'll be interesting to hear if your answer is an echo of what you just said or if there's something else you want to focus on. But I'm curious, So you're getting on a plane, and you're sitting next to a young entrepreneur who's built the next big thing. They're jazzed about it, they can't wait to show it off to the world, and can't wait to show it off to you right there on the plane. What advice do you give that person, having gone down this road a bit?
I remember sitting in a business school classroom listening to Kevin Scherer, who was the outgoing CEO of Amgen, talk about his advice to young business leaders and entrepreneurs. And he said, it's really important to take care of yourself and sleep well and eat well and exercise and spend time with the people you love. And I remember chuckling and saying, yeah, when I too am a retiring CEO and I have generated 1,000x shareholder return, then I'll find time to sleep well and eat well and spend time with people I love and all that good stuff. And just a few weeks later, I was starting at Uber, and I was working probably like similarly very long hours as I was working in my days in private equity, for example. But it was a much different kind of work. We were building. There was a lot of people leadership. We were having to be very aggressive in building, but also deal with some really tough issues as we went to bust those bottlenecks and be really thoughtful about how we build to do it in a high integrity way. And that was draining to my energy in ways that sitting for 16 hours a day behind a spreadsheet weren't. And I realized that advice that Kevin Scherer was giving was so prescient that I really had to start investing in my own well-being if I wanted to show up for the people around me. And they were looking to me for energy. They were looking to me for how to look and feel. And so not every one of us can invest every day in 8 hours of sleep and eating free balanced meals and spending time with our loved ones. Like, we're building companies, that's really hard. But if I pick a couple priority things that I know are essential to my mental health and my well-being, I've found that they provide enough of a cornerstone to keep me going. And I often find when I'm feeling particularly anxious or lost, it's because I haven't been investing in those couple of things and I need to get back to them. And so maybe 6 hours of sleep a night is my bare minimum, or having something to eat 3 meals a day that's not pop chips. And so I've invested in those things to make them work, and I've never regretted it.
That's fantastic advice. Well, Meghan, thank you for being on the show today, and thank you for telling the creation story of Duckbill.
It is such a pleasure, Noah. Thank you so much for having me and for all that you do and bringing these stories to the world.
And this concludes another chapter of Code Story. Code Story is hosted and produced by Noah Labhart. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcasting app of your choice. And when you get a chance, leave us a review. Both things help us out tremendously. And thanks again for listening.